Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking to you about Agatha Christie's Poirot. How did we get here? Like, for real. How am I sitting down to film a video about a fictional Belgian detective? I don't know how we got here. Well, I do, and I'm going to explain it to you. But yes, I've been wanting to make this video for a while now, actually. And yeah, now I'm just going to make it because, you know what? We're still in a lockdown in Scotland. Still people in lockdown in England, but yeah, time is wearing on, and how about some distraction? This is bookish related / TV related / film related, so we're just putting all the entertainment into one. In the past year, I have started to read some Agatha Christie. I say some Agatha Christie's Poirot novels. That's all I've read. I haven't actually read any Agatha Christie apart from that. And yeah, I just want to talk to you about like sort of that journey and just how comforting I am finding it, because I am really enjoying it. So I think the first thing we'll do is just start with, I guess, how I stumbled across Agatha Christie. You know, it's not like I discovered a raw gem here. Obviously, she's been writing since, I don't know when she's been writing. I know the first Poirot book was published in 1920, which is over 100 years ago now, guys. So, you know, I'm reading a book. And well, I know loads of people actually read a lot of classics that were published years ago. I don't, so for me it's quite rare. Yeah, I'm reading a book that was published over 100 years ago. But anyway, so one of the first things that actually got me into Agatha Christie is my friend Pauline, who has a YouTube channel, and I will link her down below. She talks a lot about Agatha Christie because she's really into Agatha Christie's writing. So if you're watching her videos and just noting down like, oh yeah, like she keeps talking about Agatha Christie, like she's really into it. Then I had an event when I used to work for a publishing company, which coincidentally is actually the same company that owns like the rights for all of Agatha Christie's work and stuff like that. And I was able to take away a really pretty copy of one of her books. Actually, let me get that copy. So this is the copy. It is the ABC Murders, and I picked it up and I was just like, this looks really pretty. I'm gonna pick it up. I'm gonna read it at some point. So I think I first read this in October. I actually, the day that I took it out, I put it in my tote bag and it started raining, and it was in Scotland, it rained heavily, so it soaked through and just has ruined the spine bit here. But anyway, so yes, that was back in October. So I started reading the ABC Murders and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really interesting. I never would have figured any of it out. So I was like, maybe Pauline is onto something. So then I decided to actually listen to the Poirot books on the Scribd app, because I have Scribd and all the books are on there basically. So I was just like, I'm gonna give it a listen. So I basically started listening to these books in the order they were published. I used Wikipedia to find out the order they were published in, because it lists the books in the order that they were published and then in their chronological order as well, like obviously the timeline for the story. But I thought, fuck it, I'm just gonna go and read it through when it was published. I think personally that's probably one of the best ways to ever like go through an author's like backlist titles anyway, unless the book obviously is set in a world where actually it would be better for you to read the books like chronologically in the world's timeline. Like for example, Octavia E. Butler, I just finished reading Seed to Harvest a while ago, and that book put the world together in chronologically, so it was from like when the world was built to the end rather than in publication order. So that's the only time it makes sense. Otherwise, unless, yeah, obviously if most authors don't tend to write series, I think. I don't know, I'm just generalizing here, but in this case, obviously you can read all the Poirot novels as standalones because they don't really ever connect. Like, you know, it's just kind of humour funny stuff that's happened before that you're like, oh, Hastings might have done this before. So yes, reading them in the order of publication, but I decided I was just going to listen to them on the Scribd app because I don't really listen to audiobooks a lot. Like I am the kind of person that likes to read physical books, but I decided in order to explore Agatha Christie's backlist in terms of Poirot anyway, that listening to it would be one of the best ways to do it, because I could listen to it when I was at work. And the reason for all that is because when I found reading this book, I found it really easy to follow and read. So I thought, let me just try listening to one of the books, and if I find that kind of easy to get through, then I can continue doing that. And that's what I did when I was travelling to and from work. When I was at work, I was listening to it. It was so easy to follow. And it just reminds me of like being a kid and having like those cassette tapes we used to borrow from the library. I didn't used to do that a lot, but it reminds me of that in the way that it's just so comforting to hear someone read a book to you. Like, it's just so nice. The books basically became a source of comfort for me. Like, I would go and listen to them, and it was just really nice to have a familiar character, always coming back to the same character, Poirot, and coming back to Hastings and Japp. It was really nice. So that's how basically I got listening to the books. I also think when I started listening to the books early on, I must have like been messaging Pauline, and she mentioned the, I think I'm not sure. Yeah, it is the sort of 2018 maybe version with Kenneth. Don't know what his second name is, but I'll put it across the screen here. Where they do Murder on the Orient Express, and I think I'd only read 2 or 3 Poirot novels at that point, so listened to, and I watched it. Oh my god, I thought it was awful. I was just like, this is not how I imagined Poirot to be. So I was just a bit like, like, I don't really know if I'm gonna like it, but I thought, let me give the ITV adaptations a shot. So then I got my boyfriend to download the ITV shows, and guys, we have just been watching them like so much. Bear in mind, it's about 13 seasons, I would say, and we started watching it last year. Obviously, we watch other things in between, so we haven't quite finished it. And to be fair, we're kind of putting off watching the other episodes because we're enjoying it so much. So I'm gonna just pause for a second just to rewind a little bit and go back to the books. So I basically listened to all of the books up to actually coincidentally up to when this book was published. So I'd listened to everything up until the ABC Murders, which was published in 1936. And I'd been listening to this on Scribd, so I think I must have finished listening to Death in the Clouds. I feel like I finished listening to it in January. So from October to like January, I was just listening to them. As soon as I finished one, I would listen to the other, and it would be the only audiobook I was listening to at the time, really. So it was really fun to do it that way. I got to January and I got a bit bored. I think it was just because I'd been listening to so much of it, and Death in the Clouds wasn't the greatest one to like end on. And then just by pure coincidence, when I looked to the next one to read, it was this, and I was just like, oh, that's great. So I'd actually recently started back up listening to it, and I listened to Murder in Mesopotamia, which is number 14. And I started listening to that in April. So yeah, I'm sort of, I don't know if I'm halfway through. No, I'm definitely not halfway through. No, I am about half. No, I'm not. Sorry, can't add. So no, I'm not halfway through. But I'm a good chunk of the way through. And actually revisiting the books and listening to Murder in Mesopotamia has made me love the whole series all over again. So now I'm going to talk about the ITV show, and perhaps the film as well, because I actually want to talk about that Kenneth Branagh film. So obviously we've been watching the TV shows, and obviously the TV shows are just scattered. Like, they pick up some of the short stories, they pick up some of the juicy, meatier stories, and they've done it in a random order. I don't know if that's in like chronological order or not. I haven't actually checked. So a lot of the books that I am now going to listen to towards the end of like Agatha Christie's Poirot catalogue, I have already watched. Like, I already know what happens, but I'm still going to listen to them because I am one of those people. I don't care if people give me a spoiler unless I'm like, don't tell me what happens. I don't really care about the end result. I care about how we got there. So I'm still going to like listen to the books and stuff like that, because obviously the TV adaptations are people spin on things and things like that. So listening to the books, I'll still be able to sort of be like, ooh, maybe this is something that I didn't pick up on. So yeah, we've been watching the ITV adaptations, and I bloody love it. Like, it's exactly, like, I don't know if it's exactly what I imagined Poirot to be, because I feel like what I imagined in my head, what they've done is like 100 times better. Love Hastings in this, love Japp in this. I love the addition of Miss Lemon, although I don't really know why she's been added into it. I was listening to the books and I was just like, I don't know where she came from, but okay. But I think they've made it fit really seamless. Like, you wouldn't know she wasn't part of any of the books if you hadn't read the books. And I just love the set. I just love everything about it, like just old school London and things like that. Bloody freaking love it. And I get really excited when we come to like some of the really big stories. So when they did Murder on the Orient Express, love that. When they did Death on the Nile, adored that. When they did Poirot at End House, absolutely love that. I think that was one of my favourite ones. I really just love the overall scene and setting for that one. So I am a stan for the ITV adaptation series. I do recommend that, I guess, if you're bored in the house and you've got nothing to do and you don't want to read any of Agatha Christie stuff, why don't you just give the Poirot series a watch, like find it online and give it a watch. I think it's just so enjoyable and it's just like so calming and easy to get through. Like, I love the relationship between Hastings and Poirot, and I don't know, I just love seeing Hastings come to life. Like, in the book he sounds like comical anyway, but on the show, like, I just really enjoy it. Like, I'm not some sort of TV film critic, so I can't really give you any more than I really loved it. Highly recommend it. So I guess the last thing I want to go on to is talk about the films that I've seen of it. I watched the other one where it's got Kenneth Branagh and whatever his name is, and that was Murder on the Orient Express. And I think it was meant to be this year actually that they went to do Death on the Nile, but obviously that's probably not going to happen now. And him as Poirot, yeah, no. I just felt he wasn't a very good Poirot. I think he makes Poirot again seem very arrogant, and I'm going to come on to the arrogant topic. That's going to be the last thing I'm going to speak about. But I think he just makes him seem very arrogant and just very like showy offy. And I don't really like it. Like, it's a bit too much. And also in Murder on the Orient Express, they kind of bring in some sort of love story. And it's just like, nah. Not everyone has to have that trope. Like, it was just a bit annoying. And it was just, I remember the scene where they're all like, he takes them all outside when they're on the train and then like tells the story in the tale, and I just thought, how jarring is this? But at that point, I hadn't actually seen the ITV adaptations and didn't realise that actually this is something that Poirot does a lot, where he gets people to sit down and then tells the story. I think I don't really get that when I'm listening to the books. I don't really get that that is how it comes across, but as I've listened to a couple more and definitely watch the ITV adaptations, I do see that this is a thing that Poirot actually does do a lot. So I guess the final thing I'm going to touch on is, like I said, the arrogance of Poirot. So I think Poirot is described as a very arrogant character, but I feel like initially when I was listening to this, that wasn't there. And I think maybe that's fine, because actually she was just kind of starting off writing Poirot, and maybe he was just a bit timid, you know. He was confident in his abilities, but he wasn't like overconfident. And I think as I am going on, I do get the arrogance coming through. However, I think the ITV adaptation does a really good way of showing Poirot, like, sort of his physical features and the arrogance. Because I feel like with the recent 2018 adaptation, where it has Kenneth in it, I just can't be bothered to find out what his surname is. That, because of, I don't know, how he looks and how he behaves in other ways, that arrogance really comes out. He's just like, oh, he's overconfident, he's really annoying. Whereas because in the ITV adaptation, he's this small little plump man, like, you know, you kind of afford him his arrogance, because you're just a bit like, okay, you're good at what you do, and in any other way, you are not actually offensive, which I think is interesting. It's obviously very interesting how you perceive arrogance depending on what the person looks like, all the other things that they do. But that is basically how we perceive other people, based on the number of things that they do. I wonder if, as I listen to more, like, I'll see Poirot's arrogance build up, because in the TV shows I am seeing them also build up, his arrogance build up. But also bear in mind, the TV shows are in the most random order, at least according to me anyway. And whilst it's still sort of being arrogant and stuff like that, like, they've done it really well in terms of the banter with Poirot and the banter with Jap and Miss Lemon, that, like I said, you can afford him the arrogance, especially because he is solving shit tons of crimes. But the arrogance point is very interesting, and I think I actually only first like really heard about that when in the podcast All About Agatha, which again is another recommendation from Pauline, which is obviously a podcast all about Agatha Christie. It's only then, I think, really, that I kind of heard about this arrogance and first, you know, knew that actually Poirot was seen as arrogant. So yeah, it's not actually something I guess I would have picked up on myself, I guess, because I'm like, I believe in him, so, you know, I believe he has the ability to be arrogant because he does solve cases and he does solve crimes. So I guess the final thing to do would be talk about the podcast All About Agatha. I don't actually have a lot to say about it, but obviously the podcast is all about Agatha in general, so it covers every single book that she's wrote. So I think the other series, like, is Miss Marple, and then some other series and stuff like that as well. So I have listened to a couple of episodes of them, and they have been so helpful in sort of like breaking down a lot of her novels. I think they do go through each episode, perhaps, or each other episode. Well, they'll go through and talk about a story, do the synopsis. I think they do it in like 60 seconds, and then talk about different things, and then they do a rating. And the rating is very interesting, because one of the standards like they judge it against is how well it has aged. Because at least if you've watched the ITV adaptations or if you've read the books, a lot of the things that Agatha Christie says in these books are wild. Like, you know, the thoughts, a lot of these books are written after World War One, and in Poirot's world, at least in the first book, The Mysterious Affair at Styles, it is insinuated that Hastings was in the war. There's some, you know, anti-Semitic comments in there. There's definitely racist comments in there. Just the talk of people being foreigners and how British people viewed everyone. And maybe it's just a lot to do as well with how English people view people. So yeah, a lot of things haven't aged well. Like, you know, the things they say. Like, I just recently finished listening to Murder in Mesopotamia. You know, they're saying words like coloured in there. So that's one of the good things about that book. They really do talk about, you know, these things that are not okay that was said. And I think that's important, because whilst I'm reading these books, I don't actually know a lot about Agatha Christie, so the podcasts are helping to fill in these blanks. And obviously, yeah, books, a lot of books of that time are probably going to have some things that are really are not good. They're not meant to be said, and also are inexcusable, really. But what can you do? The lady's dead. And I don't ever think the comment of saying, you know, it was of a time, that's what everyone then was saying. I don't ever think that is an acceptable thing to say about why people wrote these things in their book, because a lot of people still know that racism is wrong, that all these things they're doing is wrong. So I never think that's ever a justification for any sort of racism or xenophobia or anything in writing. I don't think it's good. But it's definitely a book of its time. You definitely read it, some of her writing, and think, hun, you can't say that, like, no. But other than that, I'm enjoying Agatha Christie. I am going to work my way through the rest of her Poirot series because I have just come to love Poirot. I've come to love this fictional Belgian detective, and I don't know, I just actually kind of want to cuddle from him sometimes, I'm not going to lie. But in all honesty, I have found comfort in reading these books, and I think that's a really important thing. I think when you find an author that you really enjoy their writing, the first thing you do is try and go through their backlist. I think sometimes you go through their backlist because you're looking for that same sort of feeling when you read one of those books. I think sometimes with authors that can actually be hard to find because the first book they'll write will be completely different to their second book. And what's obviously really nice about this is I get to just sit with Poirot the whole time in all of these stories. We don't always have Hastings, but he's not actually my favourite. Like, I do listen to some of the books and I'm like, Hastings is so dumb, like, I don't understand, but it's actually quite comical as well. So yeah, that is my Poirot tribute, my Poirot love. But yes, that is all for me today in terms of this video. Let me know if you've read any Agatha Christie outside of her Poirot books that you think I should definitely pick up. Also, let me know what other stuff, like TV series, you've been watching. I have actually currently been watching Elementary. I'm on season 2. I actually used to watch it way back in the day. I think when it ended at season 2 at the time, I just forgot about the show. So I'm getting back into it and watching that. So that's a nice little sort of detective series again. And yeah, let me know if there are any things that you've been watching, and also just let me know how you're doing in general. Like, how are you, what is happening in your part of the world, like what's happening in terms of coronavirus and lockdown, because yeah, it's been going on for a really long time now. But yeah, I hope everyone is keeping safe and well, and I'll catch you in another video. Bye.